But the senator, while indoctrinated, could not explain his toxicity.
You should not listen to men's rights advocates if you want to know what they have to say.
What's up, party people, and welcome to HBR News number 178. Kavanaugh in the sights of #MeToo and James Woods in Twitter jail. I'm your host, Brian Martinez, and I'm here with my woman-murdering alt-right gateway drug dealers to look at the best feels, funnies, and what the fucks to discuss Clam Slam Badger style. Let's get started, shall we? Today's panel consists of Mike, I have quite a few words about Telltale Games, Jay. Hannah smiles easily and loves it when you ask her to, Wallen. Doctor, don't give him milk, bro, you'll ruin his high, Randomer Cam. And me, the Doge in charge and MythCon survivor. We have a great show lined up for you guys today, so please be sure to continue the conversations both in the chat as well as the comment section. On this week's HBR News Show, we'll be talking about the events of the week, such as the second, and maybe even the third, woman who has come forward against Sochus hopeful Brett Kavanaugh, the funniest sexy women's costume in a while, trust me, this one's hilarious, how SJWs could destroy the internet as we know it, and much more. So stick around, it's going to be a good time. You can laugh between the tears, you know? And stick around afterwards.
That's what we're here for, basically.
Yeah, like laughs and tears. So a little bit of both. It's an emotional roller coaster, so don't buy into this whole toxic masculinity BS. Because we basically provide the ride, so and you guys keep showing up, and stick around afterwards for the patron-only after show. Telltale Games, the same developer behind such narrative-driven games as The Walking Dead, A Wolf Among Us, Borderlands, Batman, and lots of other licensed products, is closing its doors. I thought it would be a very interesting story because I was curious about the reasons behind it, and Mike J in particular has a lot to say on this. So it should be fun. You should come into the after show and join us. If you would like to do so, you have to join as either an audience member or a participant. Please consider becoming a patron at www.patreon.com/honeybadgerradio. And if you don't want to wake up one morning to find yourself unable to find our content because YouTube finally dropped the axe on our channels, go to badgerfeed.com. That is badgerfeed.com. Okay. So we're going to get into the stories. Before we get into the first one, we're going to be talking about Brett Kavanaugh. I wanted to bring your attention to something very briefly you may have heard, and I'm just mentioning it now in case you had not heard. There was a MythCon this weekend. MythCon is also known as Mythicist Milwaukee, and I think it may even have another sort of nickname. I went down there along with Karen and my wife Lindsay, and we enjoyed the conference, which wasn't really about atheism at all. It was mainly a discussion about social justice warriors, when the left goes too far, and this kind of cultural, war discussion. What's interesting is that in all of the history of MythCon, which this is the 5th MythCon, so it's not like a really long history. So 4 previous MythCons, there has never been a bomb threat called, even when they were talking about things like Islam. But this year, even though none of the panels were about religion really, there was a bomb threat called. So there was a bomb threat. Everything was fine. We just had to move the lunch. The lunch break was moved up a little bit earlier. Some things in the schedule got rearranged a bit. And I missed, Mike, what's his name? Michael Rowlands in his dress because I was out to lunch with Karen. So I feel like I probably missed a highlight of the entire conference. But I just thought I would share that with you because I know the bomb story was going around. And just so you guys know, it was, it didn't actually have much of an effect at all on the proceedings the show went on.
It didn't end tonight.
No, it didn't. It did not end tonight. So
this is getting to be like the hallmark of the I don't know. The group of belief systems or lack of belief systems that gets called the alt right, the not social justice warriors. Oh, there was a bomb threat. It was no big deal. We just went on with our lives, and then on the other side you get social justice warriors. Somebody said something mean to me on the internet. I had to move out of my house.
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, we're accustomed to it at this point. Like when we were all asked to leave, people were outside going, "Oh, there was a bomb threat." That was like the reaction of the crowd. Oh, that sucks. Guess we gotta go. I couldn't go to Jimmy John's for my sandwich because it was like right down the street. Because they had to close all the businesses. The city must have spent, maybe tens of thousands of dollars on just responding to this bomb threat, and the local businesses, the ones that were within a block, all had to close. So they lost money too. Real nice move, guys. Whoever did that. So
That'll
hopefully
show
that'll-
you conservatives.
yeah,
Hopefully that'll make it more of an imperative this time for the cops to figure out who did it. Because a lot of times, like, we'll hear about it and then we don't get any follow up. Like it disappears as soon as there's not an event anymore. It's like, oh well, there was a bomb threat, but it was against those guys, so it's no big deal.
yeah.
I get the feeling they're going to use this as an excuse to ban VPNs. Even though the bomb threats aren't called in through VPNs, they're probably going to go, how can we fuck people over because of this? I know.
Well, let's limit the internet some more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
Bold strategy,
so
Cotton.
yeah. So with that out of the way, it was just a little thing I thought I would mention. Let's get into the story. We're going to start by talking about the big one, or at least one of the big ones, Judge Kavanaugh. So I'm going to hand it off to Mike J. We're going to get into the Kavanaugh accusations. So, Mr. J.
All right, it's a bit of a lengthy one, so strap in. So we've got another sexual misconduct allegation is levied against Brett Kavanaugh, President Trump's nomination to the Supreme Court. This allegation is brought up by Deborah Ramirez and allegedly occurred while she and Kavanaugh were both freshmen at Yale during the 1983-1984 academic school year. Ramirez graduated from Yale after studying sociology and psychology. She is a registered Democrat, shocker, claiming that her decision to speak out is not politically motivated and has been working for an organization that supports victims of domestic violence. According to Ramirez, she was invited to a dorm room party where she and other attendees played drinking games. She soon became inebriated, as you do. She claims that at some point after that she was drunk. A male student pointed at a gag plastic penis in her direction.
Did she know that there were toy plastic gag penises lying around? Or was it just pulled from some secret place, some dark place that she didn't know was there before? I don't know. I guess we'll find out. Go on. I had to comment on that.
So far unconfirmed. We
Scary plastic dicks.
Do not know. Later, she was on the floor, quote, foggy and slurring her words, unquote, at which point a male student exposed himself to her.
Wait.
New Yorker.
Wait. Wait a minute. I'm sorry. So they pulled a penis out, then she was getting inebriated, then a penis came out, then she started, she was on the floor, foggy and slurring her words. That sounds like the penis caused that to happen, but I'm going to assume that that's not the case. Like, the sight of a plastic penis did not make her foggy and make her slur her words, right? Because it just the way that it's written out makes it sound that way.
Yeah, there's a quote coming up here that's almost Shakespearean. like something out of Macbeth. Is this the penis I see before me?
Is this the dagger I see before me?
Okay, Mike J., go ahead and with the quote.
Right. She told the New Yorker that, quote, I remember a penis in front of my face. I knew that's not what I wanted, even in that state of mind. Quote. She recalled thinking at the time, quote, that's not a real penis.
You don't say. It was disembodied in somebody's hand. Do you think... Okay.
She
Oh no,
pushed
this is the one
person-
that was exposed
Oh
to
yeah,
her. Okay,
this
yeah.
is the real.
This
penis.
was the
This
real
is
deal.
The plot
This
twist.
was the real like one-eyed monster. I got it.
She pushed the person away, touching his penis while doing so.
Oh no.
She said that, quote, I can still see his face and his hips coming toward me, like when you pull up your pants. She remembers another male student shouting down the hall that, hold on, I gotta, to get the right effect for this. Brett Kavanaugh just put his penis in Debbie's face.
Yeah, because of course, high school students. This is high school, right? High school students use the word penis when talking about.
And they use a person's.
That's definitely exactly the way some high school person would say, male or female. They would definitely say it exactly that way.
Yeah.
They would definitely say his first name, and they would
And last
definitely
name.
use the
And
word
last name.
and last name. Well, they would use his last name. They would definitely include his first name along with it, and they would definitely use the word penis and not some euphemism.
Yeah, I
Or-
believe his vast
like,
difference was showing as well.
Yes. That's very believable.
I'm surprised they didn't say Brett Kavanaugh, the future Trump-appointed Supreme Court Justice
yeah.
nomination.
Oh yeah.
Continuing. 2 other male students who were at the party claimed to have no recollection of the events. Probably because they had a fake penis put in their face and they were on the floor, eventually slurring their words and
Yes.
foggy. 5 former classmates of Kavanaugh, 2 of them being individuals Ramirez said were in the room the night of the incident, said that, quote, we were the people closest to Brett Kavanaugh during his first year at Yale. He was a roommate to some of us, and we spent a good deal of time with him, including in the dorm where this incident allegedly took place. Some of us were also friends with Demi Ramirez during and after her time at Yale. We can say with confidence that if the incident Debbie alleges ever occurred, we would have seen or heard about it, and we did not. The behavior she describes would be completely out of character for Brett. In addition, some of us knew Debbie long after Yale, and she never described this incident until Brett's Supreme Court nomination was pending. Editors from The New Yorker contacted some of us because we are the people who would know the truth, and we told them that we never saw or heard about this. End quote. Ramirez knows that she has gaps in her memory of the night, and that if she speaks with law enforcement or in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee, that she will be questioned as to why she is coming forward after so many years. She also thinks that she would be questioned about the reliability of her memory, given the fact that she was drinking.
Well, duh.
Yeah, you don't say.
Like really, like they're gonna talk about this as though these things should not be brought into question because the person making the accusation was a woman. So this was freshman year in college. So it's very similar between freshman year in college and high school senior year. You have the same kind of mannerisms and the same kind of behaviors, and the idea that this happened and nobody remembers it because everybody would have thought it was hilarious if it did happen and they would have remembered it. It just really makes it obvious that this is made up.
Yeah, one time me and 2 of my mates were sat around and one of them was so drunk that he just got up and whipped his dick out and pissed in a beer can. And I'll never forget. I mean, I only looked up for a second, but I fucking saw it. And I'll never forget.
It's burned into your
We've
cornea.
all seen penises we're not supposed to.
Yeah, there are just some things that are funny enough that you remember them forever. Dumb jokes and stuff like that too. And at that time period, what she's talking about occurring back then wasn't really abnormal behavior at a party where there was a lot of drinking and everything. It may be out of Kavanaugh's character, but it wasn't an abnormal behavior, and it wasn't something that you would be traumatized over. It was something that you would laugh off later on because, it was just people who were drunk did stupid stuff like that. She's lucky she didn't go home with stuff written all over her. If she was a guy, she definitely would have gone home with a dick drawn on her face, and people wouldn't have called it a penis. They'd have called it a dick or a dork or a cock or something along those lines. But yeah, we're not going to go through the whole pet names for genitalia
Sure.
song. But in any case, this is so dumb. Like, even if something like that did happen, this is not a kind of behavior that is predatory or should disqualify someone Kavanaugh's age from any position. It's basically dumbass college freshman, high school senior tomfoolery at a party. But it's definitely got the hallmarks of a false allegation. Oh, I don't remember it very well. Well, he used this manner of speaking that was totally uncharacteristic of people that age at that time. Yeah, no.
No. Here's another thing too that's worth pointing out. As I understand it, maybe I'm wrong, but isn't it true that Ramirez ultimately said that she wasn't going to press charges or take Kavanaugh to like court, but she just wanted to tell her story? Isn't it also true that Ramirez works for a company that supposedly helps female victims of sexual violence?
And she's a registered Democrat, yeah.
And she's a registered Democrat. Is it also true that the Republicans have, or like I guess the government, they're waiting to actually go through with this, this whole like Supreme Court justice procedure because they're afraid that she might be telling the truth. Because it reminds me of when I think it was Norm Macdonald, we talked about the story last week, where he said if 100 women come forward, or 50 women come forward, or 30 women come forward, then there's probably something there. This is what he said, okay? But if it's just one woman, then maybe we shouldn't believe them right away. And I think that what we're seeing is, first off, I think he's wrong about that. I think that
that's not quite the thing
that Norm said.
It was a little bit different. Than it was like it used to be like, well, if 100 women are saying it, it has to be true. And then he keeps going down the delineations to like the point we've arrived at today. It's like where just one woman needs to say something, and we all treat it as the truth because we treat that just for all women now. No women can be lying ever about it.
Yeah, sure. But I guess what my point is that first the other woman came forward and said something. And it was just one accusation. And of course, the media ran with it and everything because they just don't want him to get into this position. That's really what it is. I mean, even at MythCon, people were like, they were afraid of the end of the world because this judge might, this guy might become a Supreme Court justice. And I think this is just a tactic they use. So what I'm getting at is if they just throw enough women suddenly come forward and they all say that this guy touched them in the 80s, they wouldn't have to convict him. They wouldn't have to pursue it legally. They would just have to tarnish him. That's what's happening. It's
just a numbers game. Exactly.
They're just weaponizing women against political opponents, and that has to be pointed out. And this woman has the weakest story I've ever heard, and she's not even going to press charges or pursue it. So that means she doesn't actually care that much. So you have to ask yourself, what is happening here? For anybody who's like not sure or doesn't follow our Western politics very much, I don't blame you. This is a fucking shit show. This is a circus. It shouldn't be about this. But they can't, they can't fight against the ideas. They can't look at, like other ways of challenging this. They have to just try to destroy the man. And the fact is, that is on this show because you are seeing in real time how women can be used to destroy men, no matter how powerful they supposedly are. And this is just another example of that. How many women would have to come forward before the Republicans cave in and buckle and just say, well, I guess he can't be, but to the point where they say, okay, maybe this is a real thing. Even though there's no evidence, nobody's pressing charges, nobody's pursuing anything, right?
Well, this is going to be interesting because there's been some other things come out, like he's the kind of person that kept his date books, not his date books, but his day planner. And so he has evidence against the one accuser because she claimed that he was at a party in a particular time period, and his day planner makes that look damn near impossible. And this is an old document, even though it's something that he wrote himself back then. It's still kind of hard to plan for, 30 years from now, somebody's going to make this accusation about this time period, so I'm going to fill it up with these things. And it's stuff that he was out of the area. It's the kind of evidence that came up in the vexatious litigant case where the false accuser would say, "Oh yeah, he showed up at my place and broke in and did these things on this day at this time," and it turns out he was at an appointment that he got a receipt for, and there were witnesses that could say he was there. And so this is one of those situations where it's going to end up being demonstrably provable that the allegations are false one way or another. And when you target someone repeatedly with demonstrably false accusations, it's a different story than when you target someone repeatedly with questionable accusations. Like a lot of the accusations that ended up putting Cosby in jail, a lot of what put Cosby in jail was the fact that he had a number of accusations that he couldn't disprove. And he had settled one case by admitting to things that were then interpreted as worse than what he actually admitted to, and the judge decided he was guilty of all of the things that he was accused of because of that. And in this situation, he may end up getting the same benefit of the doubt from the general public. I expect him to get the same benefit of the doubt from the general public, aside from social justice types, that the 7 years in hell victim ended up getting from the judicial system in the long run. When you can see that somebody is being targeted over and over again with demonstrably false accusations, the result is going to end up being sympathy for the accused and disgust with the lobbers of the accusations, not just the women, but the party that's seeking them out. And there's been details in this that have come out that have really looked bad for the Democrat Party. The fact that they were actively seeking accusers was one. That came out. They were actively tracking down women to accuse this guy. That's reprehensible, because it indicates that there's some sort of a reward for accusing him. And obviously, when you're seeking out accusations, you're more likely to get people volunteering to make false accusations than just in a situation where accusers are coming forward. And it's it's also come out that the people involved are all diehard Democrats, and they're not the classic liberal Democrats that are anti racism, anti sexism, different strokes for different folks, fair treatment liberals. They are diehard progressive, heavy donors, activists, Black Lives Matter supporters, and that end of the spectrum. And that's not going to look good either, especially with the first allegation being proved demonstrably false at this point. So if they've talked about bringing out a third accuser. If they bring out a third accuser, and that accuser's story is as vague and questionable as the first two, and information comes out about either of the second or third accusers that matches up with the others, information comes out that makes it obvious that one or the other of those is demonstrably false, or the third accuser also turns out to be a diehard progressive supporter of all things far left, they're screwed. They're gonna destroy themselves, their reputation. They're gonna end up creating a red wave in the next election. They're gonna actually create the conditions that they are so afraid of by having another Trump appointee on the Supreme Court.
There is
hopefully
a bit of something to add there. And now this is a really developing situation. I don't know if this is the third or fourth accuser because I've heard conflicting reports. But one of them, I think, was supposed to be coming through the Stormy Daniel lawyer, Michael Avenatti.
Yeah.
And it appears that he's gone radio silent on this, and a post popped up on 4chan a little bit earlier saying that some guy's like, yeah, I was stringing him along with my girlfriend, and we we've been in communication with him for a week, and we couldn't do it anymore, and we basically just stopped giving him information, and that's why he went silent on this. And we were the ones making the accusation. He thought he had something solid gold on his hands, and now he's looking like a fool. But of course, he's denying any of this. So again, rapidly happening situation. Don't know if any of this is true, but if it is, it's hilarious.
Yeah, that would be hilarious, and it would be great. But this whole situation, this is not just in one way it's worse than the Clarence Thomas thing. The Clarence Thomas thing was racial. He was targeted because he was a black conservative, and to be honest, the far left doesn't like it when black people go off the left-wing plantation. Yeah. And they don't, and they really, really are vicious. They will use every racial slur in the book, and it's tolerated if
they don't like it when women do it either. They don't like it with any of their little protective groups go off of their like assigned little spaces or little boxes where they think they should be. If they walk off of that, they come after them.
They are more vicious to black people who go off the left-wing plantation than they are to women. I get called gender traitor and stuff like that, but I've never ever been threatened. I've had threatoids, this nasty thing should happen to you, but I've never been actually threatened or tracked down and harassed for not being a Democrat. I've just had people say nasty things to me, but I have seen black people get threatened and physically attacked and tracked down and harassed in public for not being Democrats, for being Republicans, for being libertarian. But the black people at Tea Party events had to worry about being physically assaulted, and if they defended themselves, that was Tea Party violence. So what happened with Clarence Thomas, that was sort of a encapsulated public display of that. But they stopped at one woman. They tried, and when it came out that the allegations were ridiculous, feminists picked up where the attacks on him being an independent black conservative left off. But and they still treat Anita Hill as some sort of a maligned heroine. This poor woman's accusation was not believed, and the fact that it was ridiculous shouldn't make any difference. But that stopped when her accusation was disproved. It was investigated, it was disproved, it was over, and he was allowed to mostly get on with his life. This is a sustained, one at a time, repeated series of attacks. It's not just one woman, and it looks to me like they're just going to keep going until they either make themselves such a joke that they destroy any chance that the American public will trust them for years, or they destroy this man. And because of the method, more than anything, because there are other people who could be good in this position. Strategically, and as much as I care about a human being having this done to him, strategically, it's not a big loss for the Republicans if Kavanaugh doesn't get appointed. Trump had 6 people in mind, so he'll just go to the next choice. But if the far left destroys the ability of the American public to have any trust in them, it will be decades before they have any chance of getting back in power again.
Well,
and I hope that happens because of what they're doing.
What they're hoping for is they just want to keep delaying this until after November, and they're hoping that their miraculous blue wave is going to come in, and it's going to completely throw things in their favor. So Trump is not going to be able to get anybody appointed because he won't have the votes.
Yeah, this is a reason to vote red. Like, even if, I were planning on voting some other party, Libertarian or Green or something like that, at this point, I would vote red just because of this. This is a reason to go in and show them, you're going to do this? Okay, we're going to vote for your direct polar opponents because you did this.
Hey, I guess another moral of the story is the more women you work with and or recreate with, the more likely you are to get Me Too. So if you fill at least half your cabinet with a quota of female representatives, Trudeau, you've created for yourself a powder keg of sexual accusations that one day is going to blow up right in your dick. See, going Mike Pence is only half the battle. You also have to get into the habit of employing women on merit and only merit.
Record everything.
That too. When you employ them on their gender, they'll see their gender as their most powerful attribute, and it is, because you made it that way with your fucking Me Too shenanigans. And now the only people who are safe to become politicians are people who've almost never hung out with women in their entire lives. They've just avoided them. They have no idea how or what women think or what they're like, with the necessary exception of their handler, wife. Are those the people you want in charge of shit? Well, yeah, they probably are. As long as it's a man that's officially and governmentally under the thumb of a woman, we can be reasonably sure he's only doing what she lets him do. I can't argue with that.
I actually wouldn't mind if we had a Congress of MGTOW. I'd be curious to see what that would look like.
Well, maybe a Congress of MGTOW would actually drain the swamp.
Yeah.
And start looking at, why are we spending money on this? Why do we have to federalize this? They'd probably be more ANCAP than ANCAPs.
They clean it up real quick. Okay, so I got some super chats, and then we'll move on to the next story. The Great Indoors gives us €2 and says that Ramirez story is starting to resemble Porky's. Yeah, I'm surprised she didn't just recite the shower scene. I was taking a shower with my girlfriends, and there was a hole cut in the wall, and there was some guy's eyeball looking through it. Mr. Roboto gives us $5 and says the problem is she waited 30 years till he is to be in a power position. She told everyone except the proper authorities so much doubt in play. Well, it's a little obvious that, at least in my opinion, she's lying. And this is all about just trying to do exactly what we were talking about. Delay until after the blue wave has supposedly come. And I think that it's probably going to blow up in their face. And then Mr. Roboto gives another $2 and says some of this is President Obama's fault. I don't know, probably. I couldn't tell you. And for those of you who might be watching this, thanks, Obama. For those of you who might be watching this and saying, why are you guys talking about politics when this is a show about men's issues? The fact is that this is using feminine traits or feminine, like women as a gender, weaponized against men so that people can get political power. It could have been money. It could have been whatever. It could happen on a personal scale. In this case, it happens to be on a political scale. And the fact is that you may not be interested. If you're the kind of person who's like, look, I'm not interested in politics. You might not be interested in politics, but politics is interested in you. And so, especially the politics of people who want to micromanage your life. And that is what feminists and SJWs do. That's why they're going this route. They're going to probably bring forward more witnesses, even though that one might turn out to be a prank. If they can get more, they will, because they always double down. It's like the only way they know how to operate. And this is just the timeline we're in now, basically. We're in the Trump timeline. That means, we got to look at things a little bit more politically. And hell, even Paul Elam has been, he's basically been a vocal Trump supporter because he knows that the people who are against him are the same people that are against us. It's the same rhetoric. It's the same language. It's the same goals, right? So we have to look at what's going on and we have to respond. All right.
Yeah, what we do is we look into what happens when gender issues, when the gender empathy gap, shall we say, causes turmoil in an industry. Sometimes that industry could be games or music, and sometimes it could be politics. So that's why there's so much variety in this show. Like, because this particular thing crops up in almost every walk of life. That's how deep the termites have dug, my friends.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we're going to go on to the next story. Try to have a little bit of fun, because this stuff is... Like, the Kavanaugh story is really stupid, but it could have some horrible results depending on what happens. And I'm blaming the right almost as much as the left, because they are falling into this trap of worrying about optics, of believing women in some cases, of becoming gynocentric. And instead of saying, no, you're full of shit, prove it or get the fuck out. We're going to go forward with this. Don't let them do this. Don't be weak. This is a tactic, and you're gonna fucking fall for it. All right, Mike, Jay, let's talk about something a little bit funnier. Put a smile on your face. We're going to talk about Captain Marvel, Brie Larsen.
Oh boy, worth 1,000 outraged words. In the latest controversy to be completely blown out of proportion concerning Brie Larsen in the Captain Marvel movie, someone on the internet thinks Brie should have smiled more during the Captain Marvel trailer. I know we need to take a moment. I know some people may have fainted in the audience. It's so hard to believe. It is literally shaking. I bet some people are.
A director told you what to do with your face. What's the world coming to?
All right, now that we've taken a moment, getting me back. The YouTuber by the handle Turd Flinging Monkey, shout out to Turd Flinging Monkey, FYI, tweeted out the Face app edited pictures with the accompanying tweet, quote, "I fixed Captain Marvel," unquote. Naturally, internet outrage slacktivists began sounding the alarm and decrying these edits as sexist and misogynist, because after all, telling a woman to smile more is, according to Vice.com, quote, "a very common form of harassment that objectifies women by implying their emotions and appearance ought to be controlled, and that they're for the pleasure of others," end quote. So how did the outraged masses fight back against the obvious and blatant sexism? With their own brand of sexism, of course. Twitter user @HeyMermaid used the same app to plaster smiles on some of the men in the Marvel universe, which proved...
that men should smile more too?
I guess. Sure, yeah.
I mean, women absolutely love the soy boy face. The one where you smile really wide. Like you're about to receive a cock into your face. They love that. Yeah, that really... Yeah, women really hate it when you look really smoldery and sort of deeply emotional when you look out the window like there's something going on. Women hate that. Just smile like a fucking psychopath. Women love that.
The serial killer smile?
Yeah. The John Wayne Gacy.
The Soylent Grin, I believe it's being called.
Oh, the Soylent Grin. That's the Soylent smile. Yeah.
Anyway, Brie Larsen was quick to add these to her Instagram because girl power or something. I don't fucking know. Captain Marvel will be in theaters March 8th, and I'm sure between here and there, we will have plenty more nonsense like this to deal with.
Actually, something happened, I swear to God, today. I added it to the slideshow. I asked Lindsay to do this for me. I thought it was fucking hilarious. So I just thought this story was funny. It's really dumb. I predicted it. Like, the moment I saw Turd Flinging Monkey post... I fixed it, and he put, like, the grins. I thought, my first thought was, oh, yeah, that looks better. But then right after that, I was like, oh, shit, telling women to smile. The articles are coming, and it happened immediately. I knew people were going to get upset. It's funny, just as a side comment, before I tell you this breaking edition of stupidity, which is funny to me, it's almost like men and women respond a little bit differently to the sort of like the facial expressions that you have depending on your gender. So it was just, as Mike was pointing out, if a man has a smoldery kind of, steely-eyed masculine look that isn't like a psychotic grin, women do find that attractive, and men do like to see a woman who looks happy. I mean,
for whatever reason, we all like seeing women happy. and we all like seeing men sort of sad and grumpy and in pain. We like men with scars. Scars make men more attractive. The pain makes a man more attractive, basically. I don't know why. It's I don't know. I guess I'll get a few more attempts at an explanation for this as for why chicks dig scars but men don't. I think it's because men like to see women happy and women like to see men not happy.
Well, I will say there is a certain type of grin. I think it's mostly referred to as the wolfish grin.
Oh yeah.
That will absolutely get a woman's attention. If you can perfect the wolfish, and it helps if your incisors are a little bit abnormally long for some reason, because women like dangerous men, and it may be that the smoldering look, women like men who look passionate. And I think men like women who look passionate as well. I've seen the smoldering look in media as well for women, and that's something that both sexes do get excited about. The smile thing, though, that's feminists practicing what I call "you said these pants make my ass look fat" feminism. They are not offended because what's being done is actually has the character that they apply to it. They are characterizing something in a way to excuse feeling offended when what happened isn't actually offensive. Usually when somebody tells you to smile, it's because they are trying to communicate, hey, it can get better. Don't feel bad about what's going on right now. I'm on your side, that kind of thing. They're trying to cheer somebody up who they see having a rough time. I mean, that's when somebody tells me to smile, unless they're taking my picture. When someone tells me to smile, that's the experience I usually have with it. Is, oh, you're having a rough time. Hey, let me see if I can cheer you up. And a lot of times when you are having a rough time, you can perk yourself up by smiling about it.
Yep.
And it seems kind of odd, but it does work. It's hard to do, but it works. So when people do that, they're not trying to belittle somebody or objectify somebody or take ownership of somebody's emotions. They're trying to help and support and be your friend. And feminists find that offensive.
Mm-hmm. And it gets better. It gets better. So this happened today. So Brie Larsen put out a tweet. She says, I merely smiled. So yes, actually, she's actually smiled before. I merely smiled at a TSA agent and he asked for my phone number. To live life as a woman is to live life on the defense. And then this guy replies and says, how is a guy supposed to win? He thought you were pretty and asked for your number. It's not an assault. Just politely say no and move on. And then she says, what you are saying is, quote, I was asking for it, end quote. A phrase that has disregarded a female's experience for the whole time. So not only is it terrible that turd flinging monkey, he didn't just ask her to smile. He made her smile with his app. Not only was she forced to smile, but when she does smile at people, they sometimes hit on her. It must be so difficult to be so incredibly hot. And I'm really looking forward to this movie, you guys. I swear it's probably going to be amazing because alone on the personality of this woman. The TSA is beneath her. Don't you know, you plebs? You can't just smile at a woman or ask when a woman smiles at you. You can't ask her out. You got the balls on that guy. Anyway,
so did she ask that guy's permission before she smiled at him? She inflicted her facial expression on him without consent. That is so rude.
To be fair, nobody likes the TSA though.
I don't know. I've never had any problem with them, honestly. But I know some people have.
I wonder if she smiled.
You're still not supposed to like them.
A lot of the stories that I've seen of women having problems with TSA are things like, I wore this dress with little metallic beads on it, and when I went through the x-ray machine, they said I had something on me, and they felt me up. They didn't need to do that. The x-ray machine isn't going to see through little plastic or little metallic beads. They're just stupid things like that. When you put yourself in a situation where the TSA is going to have to ask you some questions. I left liquid in my bag and they asked me about it. How dare they? I'm sorry, but you have no business complaining. You know ahead of time when you go in there that you're going to go through an x-ray machine, or you can ask for a pat down, or you shouldn't have these things or those things. And there's a whole list of things that you're not supposed to take with you and a whole list of things that you're not supposed to have in your carry-on. So if you don't follow those instructions, when you get there and you have problems because you didn't follow the instructions and you weren't prepared to deal with the reality of the situation, it's not rudeness for the TSA to make sure you're not carrying a bomb in your bra. It's not like that's never happened before. It has.
Also, we don't really have the full context of that. What if she had to get a full cavity search and then smiled at the guy? Would he not feel like, oh, I think it's probably okay for me to ask her out now? I mean, we just, I don't have the whole story here. There's probably some stuff that we don't know. Some other shit
really
that went
bad
down.
When they do a cavity search and they find like 17 of them and send you to the orthodontist, it's really upsetting.
Yeah.
But by the way, if you're an aspiring lesbian, do get a job in the TSA, and you'll be the go-to person to do the pat downs for the women, because it's not right to let a man pat a woman down. It's because that could be easily corrupted. So if you're the one woman that works there, they'll be like, every time a woman comes through, oh, you have to do the pat down now. Okay.
All right, I got some super chats. So Hokey Bukiso gives us $1.99 and says, "I'm dead inside. Smile. I'm smiling. Just so you know." French Honey Badger gives us $5 and says, "To be fair, I feel assaulted whenever I'm near a TSA agent." And then he gives us another $5 from Ancapistan and says, "The TSA is bad at its job and the rules are overkill, unnecessary, and they don't even work as intended. Seriously, fuck the TSA."
Yeah, but that's kind of like blaming the workers in a construction company when the boss gives them the plans for the wrong house and materials that aren't actually what they're trying to build the house out of.
Yeah. The TSA is the illusion of safety. It's there to make us feel like things are going well, but
I've heard they
just
fail
like in
a lot of
any
their safety checks.
Yeah, just like in any area of authority, that you're gonna get people that abuse it. You're gonna get assholes.
Mhm.
But just my experience with both the TSA and cops is the vast majority of them are good people that are there to try to do their job, and they're doing the best. Sorry, guys, it's that time of year. They're doing the best with the tools they have. And then, you do have the occasional asshole, but they're not representative of the rest of the profession. But I do agree that the rules aren't sufficient, and I do agree that the tools they give the TSA to work with aren't necessarily going to create the level of safety that the general public is led to believe that they do.
Sure.
And the idea that they can't profile is really stupid, because there's solid evidence that they should be profiling, and that takes away their ability to do their jobs.
Yeah. No, I feel that feel. Okay, moving on to the next story. The Halloween costume that will break your brain. For some, Halloween is a time not to get scary, but sexy. Characters and things you'd never dream could also be sexualized, and they are. Things like Barney and a Minion, Sriracha Tube, Harambe, that was from a couple of years back. Hey, there's a sexy nun costume down the bottom there. That's actually really daring. I wonder how much outrage it caused. Can you still buy it? If you really want to challenge a sacred object, though, next time try one from the religion of feminism, like a sexy Handmaid's Tale costume.
It was inevitable, really. It's just like the golden thing. It doesn't work unless the women feel as vulnerable as possible.
The photo of the costume came with the description, quote, "An upsetting dystopian future has emerged where women no longer have a say. However, we say be bold and speak your mind in this exclusive bread brave red maiden costume. Some didn't see it that way, though. So, some tweets.
I'm waiting for the sexy niqab thing to hit the market. Well, they've got a veil over their entire face, but apart from that, they're wearing not much else.
I bet you that already exists.
Oh, I'm sure it does.
It does.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's considered a Halloween costume, but I've seen it in shops that sell costumes.
Oh yeah, sexy Muslim costume. It's all over the first page.
Yeah,
of Google.
there's definitely those. So there's
Rule 34 has existed since long before 4chan. It gets played out in Halloween parties every year by slutty costumes.
Yes. So someone named Zoe Margolis, notice the blue check mark, says, "We're now beyond satire. Sexy Handmaid's Tale outfit. There's nothing like fighting the patriarchy by sexualizing a show about misogyny and rape." That's from Bustle. I guess she works there. The costume
Whatever happened to taking the power back? Hey?
Yeah, right.
Well, hell, what happened to women having their right to choose what to do with their own bodies? You can pick what costume you want to wear. You know, like this is not a full Handmaid's Tale costume. It's not a real Handmaid's Tale costume because nobody's forcing the chick to wear it.
But they might as well be. See, that's the reason why I find this story so funny. Because, see, feminists take the Handmaid's Tale very seriously, even though it's a work of fiction. They think that it's symbolic and it has meaning, and they love watching it. It validates their beliefs. It lets them think that such a dystopian future is actually possible, even though it's fucking ridiculous to think that. But then the group of people that are ruining that image for them the most are other women buying the sexy costume. Because the market is not made by costume companies, right? It's basically women that have seen the show and they're like, oh, I like that show. It's pretty cute, but I'm going to be a sexy Handmaid's Tale, like, handmade. I'm gonna do that for my costume. It's gonna be so hot, and then that's what they do. And so it like
then it's like I'm empowering women in two different ways because I'm being a handmaid and also a slut, and you can't shame me for either of those things.
Exactly. It undermines everything, and men don't have anything to do with it. It's just women pissing off other women, and it's just fucking great. I think it's hilarious.
What really gets me is a lot of times you get feminists acting like those are the only types of costumes that are available. The market doesn't allow for their kind of, I can't have my own costume. I can't enjoy my own brand of this or that. I don't think I've ever bought a Halloween costume. I've made Halloween costumes. I bought components for Halloween costumes that I was putting together. But I don't really. I think I've had one sexy Halloween costume, and I've done a bunch of different things. Like I went as Freak on a Leash one year, and I went on as the Ghost of a Chance one year. I had I put on a big white gown that was very, very covering, actually, because I wanted to be a ghost, and stapled a bunch of used lottery tickets, that non-winning lottery tickets to it, and I was the Ghost of a Chance, because puns. But I do scary costumes because I'm really good at looking scary when I want to. I've put one in our chat there. This is actually in my apartment, and I don't know if you can show it or not. It's Samara from The Ring.
Oh yeah,
or is it Samara, or however you say her name?
Samara.
But I did that. Samara. Okay, I did that one year, and I did that. I've done that for Zombie Walks because she's undead, and the idea of having to be limited to what you can see in online, or what you can buy in a costume shop and stuff like that is just. That would be so horrible to think I was limited like that. I would cry.
Yeah, it's like, the sexy costumes sell to young women that don't want to spend a lot of time making one, and they just want to be sexy for a day, right? And because like seriously, the slutty costumes are like the highest selling costumes of all the costumes. The slutty costumes are the highest selling. And you know what? That's fine. That's what women want to wear. I don't care. I think that is what they want to wear. Like when people wear costumes, some people want to be scary and they want to actually like pull off whatever spooky thing that they're trying to emulate. Some people just want attention. And, you know, and not, I mean, it's Halloween, you know, do you. But these people are getting so bent out of shape over something. And yeah, they do make that excuse that you're saying, Hannah. They act like because they, in their mind, they believe that only sexy costumes that's the only choice women have, which is bullshit. You can make your own. And you can go to a costume shop, you know, like a real legit costume shop, and you can get all the parts you need. You know, be a little bit creative. Go to a fucking resale shop or a Salvation Army and get some stuff. Whatever, you can do it. So, but it's a bad excuse. The whole all there is sexy versions of things. But you can't ignore that it's based on the fact that there is a market, and that market is young, attractive women that they buy that stuff. Period. If they didn't, then they wouldn't make it. So. You know, it's a weak excuse, but...
And if the idea is, well, this undermines women, then all right, what if men dressed in that way? What if there was an option for a sexy fucking handman?
Yeah. Well, there are some, like, kind of, like, you know, some costumes that men dress up for to, like, increase their sex appeal on Halloween, too, but they're usually, like, vampires and... you know, musketeers and stuff that, you know, I guess women would find attractive for different ways. Or there are like cavemen costumes and things like that. But
point is, you can say it's undermining for women to dress like that, but
yeah.
If men dress in exactly the same way, they get undermined a hell of a lot more than women. So
yeah,
fuck you, QED.
So anyway, the hate tweets aren't done, I don't believe. The costume has since been pulled down, so they actually had to remove it from the shop. The retailer Yandy received internet. Yeah, yep. The retailer Yandy received internet backlash and responded by removing it and tweeting the following: Yandy always has stood and will continue to stand at the forefront of encouraging our customers to own your sexy. We support our customers being comfortable in their skin, regardless of who they are or what they choose to wear. Our corporate ideology is rooted in female empowerment and gender empowerment overall. Over the last few hours, it has become obvious that our Yandy Brave Red Maiden costume is being seen as a symbol of women's oppression, rather than an expression of women's empowerment. This is unfortunate, as it was not our intention on any level. Our initial inspiration to create the piece was through witnessing its use in recent months as a powerful protest image. Given the sincere, heartfelt response supported by numerous personal stories we received, we are removing the costume from our site. What kind of personal stories would you give that would like make them think, oh my God, we should be taking The Handmaid's Tale so much more seriously? What the fuck?
Yeah, it sounds like it was written with a gun to their head.
Yeah, right.
That's really dumb. That's incredibly dumb. And it goes right back to demonstrating that feminism is definitely not about women's choices. It's definitely not about supporting women's freedom and women's rights. It's about controlling women and using women as a staple of proxy victims to whore out for political points and funding. And they can't do that if in any way, shape, or form the women's victim narrative is made light of.
You know, the general advice is do what Protein World did. Just say, fuck you, and carry on as normal. But we all know what happened there. The mayor of London actually banned those ads. So the general advice is, stick the finger up and say, no, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. But don't be surprised if some dick actually makes it illegal.
If they were smart, what they would do is they would take all of these, remove the hat, rebrand them like sexy Red Riding Hood outfit. By now, get free paper hat.
Yeah. They probably, because, these costumes look pretty cheap, even though this one's like $65 or something. But yeah, I know. It's like, whoa. It must be nice to be somebody who get 80% of all the money is spent on you. But, they probably will just because it's just the cape and the hat that you get. Everything else is supplied, you have to supply yourself. So they probably will just put the capes in a different box and call it something else and just keep selling it. So,
well, there are other red capes. So you can get a red cape and you can make that hat. That hat it's like I could make that hat in 5 minutes.
It's a piece of construction paper folded over. That's it.
Yeah.
And
It's
if I
Sure,
wanted
there's a
to
lot
be
of Santa
fabric-
costumes you could just pull inside out and voila, you got that.
if
Yeah,
you wanted to
Santa
be
costumes.
if you wanted it to be sturdy, you just put cardboard in between two pieces of. You just take a white bed sheet, an old white bed sheet, cut it up and sew it, or glue gun it. It would be so easy to make that costume.
But it gets better because you see, when feminists get you to pull something down, they never stop with what they asked you for. They always have to have more. So, more tweets came. One from KMD saying, "Thanks for removing it. Now please remove all of your Native American / Indian inspired costumes as well. Their cultures are not our costumes." This is unironically posted. And then someone else named El Spooky Gato writes, "Great, but while you're at it, could you please remove your Native American costumes? They're incredibly racist and insulting to indigenous people. And if we're going to celebrate women's empowerment, let's not limit it to white women, please." There are also...
Okay, if we're only allowed our own national dress, then this leaves us, British people in particular, and the countries that are colonised by them, with the business suit. Because that is the national dress of England. People often forget, because the entire fucking world is culturally appropriating it. Mm-hmm. Every businessman in the goddamn world wears the national English dress. So I mean, do they all have to stop because it's cultural appropriation?
Yes.
Yeah,
you should make us all stop. You should totally make us stop.
All costumes are cultural appropriation.
Yeah.
Actually, there is no costume you can wear that is not cultural appropriation. You can't dress up as a zombie because that's there's a zombie culture. You can't take it. You can't dress up as a ghost. You can't dress up as anything. Even if it came from a movie, that's still cultural appropriation. By feminist standards, Halloween should be outlawed.
And also one other thing.
Trying.
They're
fucking trying.
They absolutely are. If they would have just made this like the kind of like, puritanical head to toe burqa style costume that's actually from the show, they would not have complained. And yet somehow this company, Yandy, right? They said, what was it here? It has become obvious that our Yandy Brave Red Maiden costume is a symbol of women's oppression rather than empowerment. The sexy version of this costume is the oppressive version, according to what people are saying. Just think about this for a second and then tell me, how is feminism not the same as another ideology that I could think of that also demands that women cover up from head to toe? How is it not the same as that? Since this one...
down.
Yeah.
Just remember who organized the Women's March.
Yeah.
And what she has said about certain culture stifling law and how great she thinks it is for women.
Well, fortunately, there were a handful of tweets that pointed out the ridiculousness of this entire story, and then that'll be where I end it. Shilpa Kanani says, "People offended by this are ridiculous, crazy, and have nothing better to do with their lives. If you don't like it, then don't buy it. Yandy should not have caved either. You're just perpetuating this, quote, it's okay to be offended by anything culture." Marley Magdalene, also known as @transpotatoes, which makes me want to follow her immediately. "Seriously though, women telling other women what they should or shouldn't wear under the guise of knowing what's best for them and wanting to protect them. And the topic is the fucking Handmaid's Tale." If irony were strawberries, we'd all be drinking a lot of smoothies right now. Yes. Yes! That's exactly it. That's why The Handmaid's Tale as a story makes no sense, because it presumes the men do that. When women are the ones doing that. Now, in the real world.
By the way, I have been reminded in the chat, because we've been talking about this in HBR Talk. I just want to remind everybody that feminism has no power.
No power.
No influence.
No influence.
None.
No power, no. Nope, they're just plucky underdog, desperately trying to be heard, and they have to keep their identities as feminists secret because they know that it comes with so much baggage. So much baggage. All right. Well, that's all I got of The Handmaid's Tale, so we're going to move on to the next story. Please leave a comment. Let me go to the super chats before we move on. Just one from Ancapistan for $5. It says the TSA should not exist. It is not the right tool for the job at all. Airport-owned security is more than enough. All right, so we're going to move on and talk a little bit about something else kind of funny. We're going to talk about James Woods. So, Mr. J, if you would be so kind.
Why, certainly, Brian. Prolific writer, director, and producer James Woods has angered the Twitter gods. In a tweet made over 2 months ago, Woods pointed out an obviously fake Democratic Party advertisement urging men not to vote so that a woman's vote would mean more. Woods...
It's great. I love it. Go on.
There is a twisted logic to it. You can see why it's confusing.
Makes sense if you don't think about it much. Woods acknowledged that the advertisement was most likely fake while pointing out something like it could be real in this day and age. Fast forward to last Thursday when Woods discovered that his Twitter account was suspended along with an email from Twitter. In the email, Twitter stated that a tweet of his, quote, has the potential to be misleading in a way that could impact an election, and that to regain access to his account, he would need to delete the aforementioned tweet. Woods believes that he is being singled out for his political beliefs and refuses to delete the tweet. In a statement, Woods said, quote, "Free speech is free speech. It's not Jack Dorsey's version of free speech. The irony is, Twitter accuses me of affecting the political process when in fact their banning of me is the truly egregious interference. Because now, having your voice smothered is much more disturbing than having your vocal cords slit. If you want to kill my free speech, man up and slit my throat with a knife. Don't smother me with a pillow." End quote. Twitter has not directly responded to the incident, noting that they do not comment on individual users or for privacy and security reasons.
Yeah,
the
that's
good
a
thing is
cop-out.
you don't have to delete the tweet. You can get a screenshot of it, archive it, and then delete it anyway, and then show it to everyone. Hey, everyone, this is the tweet that they banned me for. In the meantime, you're busy getting unbanned. You know? you can make the Streisand effect work in your favor if you just take a few simple steps.
I'm not so sure they wouldn't just turn around and reban him for it.
Well, because he's famous, they might. People do that all the time. I've done that. But this is really a serious issue. I mean, this is a social media aggregate telling an American citizen that they cannot discuss politics on the site because they might influence the election.
Yeah, like no one else on Twitter is trying to influence anything. Just James Woods.
That's
Ban all politicians on Twitter then.
They have basically said, if we don't like your politics, you can't use Twitter.
Yep.
Twitter is a free service that's supposed to be available to all. They sell their ads on that basis. They have their protections on that basis. And this is another one. They're protected from being sued for things like libel or slander or defamation if, for instance, person A tweets something false and malicious and damaging about person B. The person who tweets the thing can be sued, but Twitter's exempt because they can't control what people do on their site. but now they are controlling political speech in only one direction on their site. I think that exemption should go away because they've demonstrated that they can control what people do on their site. So therefore, they are responsible for everything anyone does on their site. That's the first thing. The second thing is they are engaging in political campaigning. They are now a political action committee. They are an unregistered political action committee. They are breaking campaign finance laws. So they're treading a very thin line here. And I think if they keep along this route, they're going to, and I partly wonder if this is deliberate, they're going to get the authoritarians in Congress. They're going to hand them exactly the excuses they need to start regulating social media. And when they do, they won't do it in a way that's good for the public. And they'll do it in a way that makes it very difficult for competition to crop up. They'll do it in a way that makes it even easier to control what gets expressed on social media. And it'll become another incumbent protection system, essentially.
Absolutely. It's not a super chat, but Zhang Ying Li made a comment that I was thinking about when I saw this story, where he says, I got thrown into Twitter jail several months ago for tweets commenting on Sawad Fares's magical fingering session. And anybody who tweeted about that, which is the just for those of you guys who don't know, Sawad Fares is an actress from the television show Game of Thrones that accused Mark Pearson, who has I have spoken to on many occasions. She accused him of sexual assault on a public train station in London under the conditions under which were impossible, and her identity was protected by the crown, I guess you could say, to the point where they wouldn't even show her face in the courtroom. Like, she was behind like a veil, and you could only see her hand, and she was going through the court proceedings. It's a ridiculous, farcical situation, and it's so bad that even though Mark Pearson was found innocent of all charges, he can't mention her name ever again. And anyone who talks about Sawad Fares on social media, in particular Twitter, they go into Twitter jail. You can't even talk about her.
Especially in Britain, by the way. I think it might be illegal in some way. I think.
Yeah, it might be.
I
think it is. I think there's like a fine if you talk about it in Britain. Yeah.
It's like that thing where we weren't allowed to talk about Tommy Robinson's getting jailed for a few days. Well, the Sawad Fares thing has been in that situation ever since it happened.
Yeah, I actually was one of the people who got suspended for tweeting about her, and I ended up gathering some information. I couldn't get everybody's tweets because a lot of people had sort of deleted their tweets, and so they didn't have they basically couldn't provide me with images and stuff like that I could use to complete the story. But I did actually write about this for A Voice for Men, and I don't know if I can remember the title. Oh, okay, I see it here, and I don't know why, but for some reason the site keeps reloading, so I can't read it. But it's like the second to the most recent thing that I wrote for A Voice for Men. Mm-hmm. That's really annoying. Why the hell is it doing that?
Well,
Twitter censors reference to Sawad Fares's hashtag false rape accusation was the name of the article, and there were several people whose tweets were deleted. There were several people who were, and in fact, I was asked to delete like 4 or 5 tweets on the topic, and there are several people who commented that they had stuff deleted as well. So this is Twitter silencing United States citizens because of a protection for a false accuser in the UK. And this is there's a couple of things they've done here. That's very serious as well. That's enforcing UK law on US citizens. Like, that's not just wrong on the level of that's another country and you're enforcing their laws outside their country. That's enforcing the laws of a country that had been, the owner of another country until a revolution happened, on the country that fought a revolutionary war to get out from under those laws. So it's insult and injury.
Another reason globalism is a dumb idea. You'll turn the whole world into your phone provider. There'll be no more competition, so they'll treat you however the fuck they like.
One more thing about this James Woods story, it's important to point out that what he actually tweeted was extremely harmless. He said in the tweet, he posts the image of what is, if you have two fucking brain cells to rub together, you'll acknowledge it as some kind of a joke, where it says, we're making a woman's vote worth more by staying home, and it has a photo of some guys giving the old Soylent grin, and it says hashtag let women decide, hashtag no men midterm. That's a joke, right? I mean, if you actually listen and take it seriously and don't show up to vote, you probably shouldn't be fucking voting, just so you know. And he says, pretty scary, that there is a distinct possibility that this could be real. Not likely, but in this day and age of absolute liberal insanity, it is at least possible. So he doesn't even say this is real. He is not encouraging anything. He's basically pointing at it and saying, the world is so crazy right now, this might be a real thing. And he's actually right about that, but this is like it's almost like a prank along the lines of some of the other stuff we've seen before, like the whole piss for equality and free bleeding and other sort of troll things that come out of, the dark parts of the internet.
And actually get adopted by feminists.
And then actually get adopted because they're stupid and they think, and the logic works. Basically, you're using the feminist logic to get people to do really dumb shit. And some of them do. And it's funny because it's showing how easy it is to program people with the dumbest shit. And that's sort of like what this is. It's like a joke. But even though James Woods acknowledges that it's very likely that this is not true, and he's sharing it, and it's obviously dumb, right? And there is a hashtag called Let Women Decide and No Men Midterm, which I don't think is getting anybody banned or suspended from Twitter if they just use the hashtag.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if it was a real thing, if it was posted in all sincerity, then would that get banned? But for the same reasons, because it is a message that could conceivably meddle with elections. Hey, don't vote if you're a man. Particularly because mostly Democrat men will agree, and you'll shoot yourself in the fucking foot.
And also they had to. One other thing.
They don't care about this.
No,
they don't care about what he said.
One other thing,
because he's an influencer and he's on the right.
No, for sure. One other thing about this too. This wasn't something that was up and then Jack Dorsey or his team saw it and they said this has to be taken down. This was something that people went into his background, they went into his history, found this, and then reported it to Twitter. And enough of them did it. This goes back to the first story about Kavanaugh. How many people does it take to complain, whether it's valid or not, before someone responds, maybe even just to make it go away, or because they start to think that there could be something to it, right? Without actually
25.
Holding...
It's 25 tweets.
Yeah, 25.
It's 25 tweets.
It's however many people, but they reported it in mass and they got it taken down. And that's what got him suspended, rather, as a result. And the funny thing is that now that everyone knows about it, tons and tons of people are tweeting out this image because it's actually served the opposite purpose. If the purpose was just getting James Woods taken off of Twitter, then I guess good job for those of you who want to do it. But if the purpose was to hide this image so that it doesn't see a lot of, it doesn't get out and start influencing people, which is what Twitter's excuse is, well, then they failed because now everyone's sharing it. And it's basically all over the place. So, good job, Twitter.
This was done to Judgy Bitch. In fact, the image that finally was the last straw that resulted in her ban from Twitter was a decorated wedding cake. It was just a buttercream iced multi-tiered cake with flowers on it. Like that was so offensive that Twitter banned her permanently for posting it because a bunch of feminists reported it as a sensitive image. And that was what she found out, was that it doesn't matter if what you are posting is deserving of a ban or a suspension or not. If enough people do it, you're just screwed, and you don't have any recourse. Twitter doesn't answer complaints. They don't respond to you if you make an inquiry or ask for a person to look at your suspension or your ban and assess whether it was appropriate or not. It's just done. And so what's being done is the people who claim that false accusations are rare, that they never happen and we shouldn't worry about them because they're not a problem, are using false accusations, mass false accusations of inappropriate posts, Twitter toss violations, to get accounts that they do not like silenced.
All right. Quote, "To execute a man, we don't need proof of his guilt. We only need proof that it's necessary to execute him. It's that simple." End quote. Okay, who said that? Anyone?
Isn't that Stalin's dude in the NKVD?
Close enough. It's Ernesto Che Guevara. It's a meme. It's going around.
Guevara.
Oh, that guy.
Yeah. It sums up an awful lot, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's a good point. So anyway, also look up the Let Women Decide and hashtag No Men Midterm. Apparently there's lots of tweets out there using the hashtag. So did James Woods actually, is he going to do more damage without being on Twitter than while he is on Twitter? I don't know, but I do know I will miss Hades because he was the fucking man. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the last story. We're going to get a little depressing again. And I'm going to hand it off to Mike J. And we're going to talk about the future of the internet and how it might be in danger.
So I'm going to begin this with saying that I have not done quite all the research I wanted to in this. It's a very, very, very big topic that I didn't have a ton of time to look into.
Yeah, I kind of like added this one on like at the last minute, and I don't know much at all about the tech side of this story either. So I would say that, this is an incomplete conversation. So if there's anything that we don't say or the info that we don't have, be kind, because we don't have all the info. It's a dense topic, basically. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, so this is my understanding. If I fuck anything up, take it up with the management. In the latest infiltration / power grab by progressives, the free open source software community is the target, specifically Linux. The free open source software known as Linux exists in many things that require an operating system, from servers and routers to smartphones and personal computers. Feminists and other champions of diversity have been trying to foist a code of conduct known as the Contributor Covenant, if that doesn't sound culty enough as is,
right,
onto the Linux project for the past 3 years, and as of September 16th, it looks like they've finally achieved their goal. The Contributor Covenant's rules are vague and nebulous at best. It seems that its only purpose is to be used to banish contributors from the platform for committing wrongthink.
For a little bit of context, Linux is like, well, you know how PC users call themselves a PC master race? What they don't like to admit is that Linux users are the PC master race's PC master race.
Another thing
the
about
ultra nerds who know how to construct things one thing at a time,
And a lot of people who have like made things for various servers on the internet and Android apps and so on use Linux. So it's actually really important to the internet as a whole. Like the whole thing is largely what we have is built on. So
Exactly. Like I said, it's in your smartphones, it's in your routers, it's in your servers, it's in your smart fridges. You probably interact with this shit on a daily basis and don't even know it. Many Linux developers are unhappy with this, and some are planning to fight back. One user suggests that anyone ejected from the community over the contributor covenant should rescind their code. It seems that this is not only legal to do, but that failure to remove the code upon the contributor's request could leave those who fail to comply open to legal ramifications. This removal of code, if large enough, could have a domino effect, crippling or at least severely hampering any system that runs Linux.
all right, and there was so basically to go back over this, there was so for 3 years ago, so in 2015, right? Feminists and other SJWs, or champions of diversity, had been trying to basically apply a code of conduct to the Linux community, okay, called the Contributor Covenant. And they specifically, in another story that I read, or in another place where I read about this, they specifically said it existed to essentially police the Linux community, which is think of Linux as like a giant I don't know, like a skyscraper that's constantly being built, right? And people are like adding levels to it, adding bricks to it. And some have been doing so from early on. So they have invested stuff into the foundation, they have stuff at the lower levels, and so on. And all of it is reliant and sort of like interconnected with other parts. If these people kick people out because they breach code of conduct, which is worded in a very vague way and can be essentially is used by people who are sensitive to everything. I don't know if you've noticed the story we just did about the goddamn Handmaid's Tale costume. Then that means that Linux users could get kicked out of the community. And if they do, they are planning on taking the work that they've done with them, i.e. pulling the plug on their parts. And so what this could have significant damage that people can't even really know. This is actually like a huge fucking deal. SJWs can destroy the internet, is what I'm saying.
I wonder if generations from now they'll have completely forgotten the phrase open source, and their great grandparents will speak of this strange ghost that people used to speak of back in the day, called open source, before they made that sort of thing illegal shortly after the Article 13 thing.
That's probably the goal. I mean, you think about it, there's probably a lot of useful idiots in the feminist community that don't realize it, but behind all of them is probably somebody somewhere who stirred their shit and got them all riled up and got them to do this, who has financial reasons to not want there to be open source. Here, I would. This is exactly what not mainstream, but quote nice end quote feminists, the feminists that aren't responsible for any of the bad things feminism has done. This is what they do. They support shit like this. Oh, this will be a good thing. It's a user agreement. It's a contract between everybody. The fact that most of the people involved aren't consenting to it doesn't matter. This is going to make things much nicer in the community, and then they kill the community. The community will die. It'll wither on the vine, because they will, one at a time, attack all of the talent within the community, and all that will be left are the you said these pants make my ass look fat feminists, and that's the goal. I'm sure.
It's funny you mentioned that, Hannah, because the first person they're going after is also the first guy that wasn't real keen on installing a back door into Linux for the, I believe it was the CIA, back when they were trying to do that sort of thing. And another person that's really was, I think, the hardest pushing this new COC, this Creators Covenant thing. It looks like she used to work for Intel. Oh boy.
Yeah. It's actually really interesting because if
Imagine
Linux
my
goes down,
shock.
all that's left is Apple and Microsoft, right? They were like Linux was the as far as I know the only alternative, unless like there's some like Unix. I don't know what that is, but again, I'm not a tech person. But here's another bit that I thought was really interesting. The controversy: activists from the feminist and LGBTQIA plus communities have been trying to force the Linux project to join the Contributor Covenant since at least 2015. The Contributor Covenant is an agreement to implement a special code of conduct, frequently COC from now on, aimed at changing the predominantly white, straight, and male face of programming. So they have a goal to change who is making Linux, because it's too white, it's too straight, and it's definitely too male. CC's code of conduct is controversial, particularly because it allows anyone to be banned from contributing code for any reason, usually with no mechanism for oversight or accountability. On September 16th, so just a week ago, less than that, the pro COC side got their wish. How this happened is a very strange story of its own. Read recent reviews about Linus Torvalds' departure. Linus Torvald is the guy, is he the guy who started it? Who started Linux? Yeah. Read news about his departure if you want to know more. Linux had officially committed to implementing and obeying the CC code of conduct, and they immediately set about using it to remove top Linux coders. Sage Sharp, this is a person who tweeted, who describes they-self, I am not kidding, who describes they-self as a, quote, diversity and inclusion consultant, Hufflepuff, non-binary, agender, trans masculine, and has 7,000 followers, cites Geek Feminism Wiki, and targets Google's Theo So with accusations of being a rape apologist. Sage Sharp, tweet follows. The new code of conduct explicitly says discrimination and harassment on the basis of sex or gender is not allowed. One Linux Foundation Technical Advisory Board member who did not sign off on the patch is Ted So, who is a rape apologist. So, this is, I don't need to read any further. These are the people that are starting to work within Linux, and Linux is like, I guess it's like it's a really big part of the internet, it seems. Again, I'm ignorant, so, school me, but I'm thinking this is a big fucking deal, and the people who think like this are actually going to get people kicked out.
I only just asked myself, what the fuck is a covenant? What's the difference between an agreement and a covenant? And I looked it up, and it seems the difference is God. A covenant is an agreement in which one or more of the parties is God. So you go around calling yourselves a covenant, then you may have lost touch with reality, folks.
We're far past that.
It is exactly as sinister as it sounds.
You look at this. We go back with this story to 2015, but this has been building since at least the PyCon dongles incident. I believe was in 2012 or 2013. No, 2013. And I'm actually getting this information from a link from a story that the story is called Why I'm Not Laughing at C+ Equality. And I'm not going to read the whole story, just this this story basically okay, when I saw the GitHub then Bitbucket repository C+ equality published by a user named Feminist Software Foundation, my shields went up. The repository's README explains C+ equal, pronounced either C-plus-equality or C equality, is a feminist programming language created to smash the toxic patriarchy that is inherent in and that permeates all current computer programming languages. The repository consists of some code, but the main event is the 2,000 plus word README that outlines the programming's language. It's full of quips about objectification-oriented programming and interpreters. And it's actually, this was a serious thing. Somebody wrote I guess an offshoot of a computer language to take the perceived masculinity out of the language. I guess some numbers and letters and stuff are masculine,
surely-
and there
surely
were
all of these-
combinations. There were combinations of letters that are parts of code that they were actually interpreting as misogynistic because they look like or are abbreviations of or equivalents of words that they treat as misogynistic. And this is how feminism responds to coding.
Oh shit, I'm trying to remember. Fuck, I forgot what I was going to say now. Oh, no. It's regardless of the numeric language that these things are translated into, the medium they're recorded on is generally binary. It's that's how they can do it on such small things because they're only using zeros and ones. It's all a very long series of zeros and ones, roughly in equal proportion. You can't get much more, gender mixed than that because it's obvious what a zero is. It's obvious what a one is. One's a hole, the other's a stick type thing. So it's all harmonious.
Well,
Turing's
maybe there
machine.
should be some twos in there. Sounds kind of bigoted to only have zeros and ones.
Here's an example. This is hilarious. Okay,
What's wrong with 8? The number 8 looks good.
She labeled this cishet and or heterophobic. These are all real values greater than 0. The only exception is the value of, and then she inserts white heterosexual cisgender male privilege, which is set to infinity, and also the value of, and then she inserts here patriarchy, which is set to SQRT in parentheses -1. Since everyone is equal with the exception of cishet men who are already excluded as per the license, this always evaluates to true. The social justice warrior, instead of, quote, running a program, which implies thin privilege and pressure to, quote, work out, programs are given birth. Not calling the preferred
Lord.
data type leads to a privilege not checked exemption or privilege not checked trigger warning. The whiny and over emotional, the determination of this depends on how underlying logic feels at the moment. So this
Jesus, it's like the Simpsons skit with the
Yes.
the feminist mathematics. It's like feeling the numbers. It's real. That was a joke, but it's apparently not a joke.
Yeah, this is basically a woman getting offended at the language of how things are described in coding and making it sexual and making it personal.
Good Lord. Okay, I gotta read the super chats. Let's see here. So I want to. Oh yeah, we're behind a bit. Hoki Bukisa gives us $10 and says, "If you take this extreme cultural appropriation to its logical conclusion, you'll end up with white supremacy culture because nothing but white culture will be permitted by the S-Jews." Altair Mowat gives us $5 New Zealand. Thank you, Altair. He says, "Hey guys, thanks for giving me something interesting to listen to at work. Keep fighting the good fight. 07. Adrian Jacobson gives us 50 knocks, or kronas, I think is it what it is. "Women voted for Trump though, but those were the deplorable women, not the outstanding women like Miss Waterford. They weren't actually women, those were sock puppets. Sock puppets that were voting. Women wouldn't vote for such a terrible man." And Capistan, French Honey Badger, gives us $5 and says, "Isn't Linux under GPL license, which basically makes it not your code?" I don't know. So you're saying when people contribute, they give it up? Or
there was a portion I saw saying something like that it's under GPL version 2. And as long as you're able to copyright it, then you can claim it as your code. Or something like that. It was more detailed in the article. I personally am not going to pretend to understand any of that, but I do know that it was covered in there.
Right, and it's a really long article because there's a lot of information to go through. So Hoki Bukisa gives us $5 and says the same woman maybe got fired from GitHub for being an abrasive asshole who got in everyone's face and made women cry. I don't know if that's
shocker.
Yeah. French Honey Badger gives us $5 and says there are ternary computers. Also, I always thought C+ equals was made as a joke.
No, the article is serious. The response to this. Let me read the last response. And I'm assuming this is yeah, here we go. Okay. So it says to the not a, I don't know how to prove whether this is pronounced Bean or Benet. And to the creators of C plus equality, this is not a playful joke, and you fail to reach your mythical intersection at which playfulness overshadows misogyny. Your demands that people lighten up about the repository are just another entry in the list of instances where people speak up about sexism in tech and are told to take the joke. Your document is a collection of sexist, transphobic jokes and negative stereotypes, and I'm not laughing. That's basically how this person ends this article. Like they got deeply offended, but there's been this influx of feminist oversensitivity to everything, involved in computer languages and involved in anything to do with programming, anything to do with building computers. This has been at least making it to the internet since Donglegate. Probably before, just not to the mainstream internet. I'm sure if somebody were to go back and look through communication forums where these particular hobbies and professions are discussed, you'll probably find it going back a good 15 years at least.
Okay. Somebody did add something. Let me finish this super chat. OpenEmu had a pull request to make the project more inclusive. We ignored it. That was Encapistan. And lastly, Ovid gives us $5 and says, Brian, the number 8 is just a sexy and curvy 0. Using 8 is body shaming. Damn, I didn't think of that.
It's like a 0 wearing a girdle.
Yes, that's right.
And getting bingo holes, it's always described as 2 fat ladies. It's 2 fat ladies with girdles on, if anything.
And lastly, this isn't a super chat, but Mr. Kiakin says Linux kernel is written under GPL2, not GPL3 license. One of the differences is that under GPL2, the creator keeps his or her ownership of the contributed code. So there you go. And also, someone corrected me on the pronunciation of the name of the guy who created it. It's not Linus, it's Linus or Linus. The person who Linus Torvald. So thanks for the correction. All right, any other final thoughts on this story of fucking SJWs adding a code of conduct to goddamn programming because they don't like all the white men that built it?
No one's called Linus. I think Charles Schultz killed it.
Yeah. Well,
I'm just drifting off now. I have no idea.
Well, no, you're right. Whenever I hear the word, when I see the word Linus, I think of Linus because that was actually how his name was pronounced on the Peanuts. Yeah, so I thought that's how you pronounce Linus because that's the only Linus I've ever known. Everyone thinks of that guy when they think of Linus, the guy with the blanket.
It might be a regional thing. My name is like that. Here in the United States, everyone I know pronounces it Hannah, but I have dated people in my long history years ago who pronounced it Hannah, and so it's totally different. Sounds like a totally different name, and you had to have the hard H, which is hard for me to pronounce right now because allergies. There's different people that there's other names that different people pronounce differently like that depending on where they're from, and it can be confusing when you move because of that. So there may be it may be that name is the same, that it's not, there aren't a lot of names that you can say originated in the United States. There's a fairly limited number of names that originated in the United States, and they're probably not used in most places. The most names originated in countries that are foreign to us, and many of them originated in languages that are not English, and they're pronounced differently in their original language.
It's usually something to do with Gaelic. When there's a rogue H at the end of something, it's probably some Gaelic shit going on. Or
Yeah.
maybe some Arabic shit going on, but not usually.
Yeah. So it's Linus because it's Linux, and his name is in
Yeah.
the name of the thing. Okay, so thanks for that. I know we've needlessly talked about pronunciations. Honey Badger says it's not French. Honey Badger says it's not pronounced Linus. It's pronounced anus. Okay. Well, they hate us
Everything
because
is
they
pronounced
anus.
Anus. I like this language.
Hey,
Tatsumi.
putting anus in everything is much safer than putting everything in anus.
Yeah. Well, it depends on the anus. I think Stormy
So what's
Daniels can
anus
handle
pudding?
it. So Tatsumi Twee gives us $1.99 and says LaQuisha and other black names Hannah. Okay, so
My grandmother attended the delivery of a baby whose mother named her after the route that the passing train that went by when she was giving birth had taken. So the child grew up with the name Erie Lackawanna.
That's a conversation starter.
yeah.
Yeah.
I knew a girl named Tamara Knight. I'm not kidding. That was her name. All right. Well, anyway, we're going to go ahead and wrap up the show. We're going to go into the after show where we're going to be looking at this story of Telltale Games begins the major studio closure and what the reasons might be or are behind this happening. I haven't looked at the article, so I don't know anything about it. And if there's time and we get through that really fast, then I'm going to look at this other editorial called Insomniac Spider-Man is Political, but the media was too dumb to see it. I haven't seen that either, although I have played a lot of Spider-Man. I'm not finished yet, though. I don't want to spoil it for myself. That's why I'm like kind of waiting. But anyway, if you want to join us on the after show, you have to become a patron at www.patreon.com/honeybadgerradio. And also, please feel free to leave a comment, to like, subscribe to our channel, because this is where the new show and the live streams will be. And we hope that we will see you guys here very soon. Please hit the like button, though. Like I said before, it's great for our analytics. It keeps people... It introduces the channel to more folks that we can see. Sargon spoke to me when I was at MythCon, and he said, I don't understand why you guys don't have 1 million subs. And I am inclined to agree. Why don't we have 1 million subs? So... please sub, please share, please talk about the stuff we talk about. I think it's the reason why we don't have 1 million subs is because people's heads would explode if they had to hear what we thought. But that's because they're not ready
Well, it's
for it
definitely
yet.
not because of YouTube skullduggery. They don't have the means to artificially lower people's... So they've never had those means.
No, no.
Certainly wouldn't have tested them out on us first. I mean, we're not even in the AIN network. Why would anyone bother silencing us?
I have no idea why that would be the case. It certainly isn't happening. So, with that said, I will bid you good night. Thank you to my co-panelists, and thank you especially for watching. And we will talk to you guys very soon.